We're from Road Trip Nation, and we're supposed to be here to interview Joshua Jackson.
I mean, first off, it's a little strange for me to be trying to give you wisdom because I'm only 28, so we're more contemporaries. I started working when I was really young. 11 years old, way before I knew what it was that I was doing, just sort of got started on this path accidentally. So you're working at it, but it's not being a 9 to 5. I was still going to school, still being a high school kid, still getting into all that kind of trouble. The 7 years that led up to Dawson's Creek, I was thankfully a working young actor, but I was by no means like a hit sensation. And the year prior to Dawson's Creek was my hardest year. I was, my voice broke, and all of a sudden I got tall, and I, was feeling cocky like 17, and all that was going on. And I had, I'd kind of given up, to tell you God's honest. I'd come down to Los Angeles and done a couple auditions, and I got this one job, and then the financing fell apart on their movie, so it didn't end up happening. And I was very ready to sort of call it a day and go, all right, well, I had my little run, and now I got to go to college because I thought that's what you're supposed to do, and I got to find a stable job because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. And thankfully, it didn't quite crumble for me that way. The job that got postponed ended up coming around just at the time that they happened to be casting television shows, and I happened to have the time to go to this audition for Dawson's Creek. And so, so there's also a huge amount of luck. I mean, that sort of cosmically worked out in my favor. So yeah, I mean, every time you take a job and you look at it in retrospect, you always think about the consequences, but instead of begrudging them, realizing that at this place where I am, I'm not stuck here at 28. I'm not in a bad place now. So it took all of those good, bad, and sort of mediocre decisions along the way to get me to this place.
Yeah. Okay, so at what point do you kind of sit back and say, okay, I've been making the right decisions? Or do you think about the consequences of decisions that, probably you made and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the personal consequences.
The reason why I just asked that question is because, that preoccupies our minds, on a daily basis. Well, I can't do this because of the consequences of that, and then I can't have a kid, and then I can't have a normal family or whatever and all that. I mean...
And, there's a certain amount, the big brother in me definitely says, be judicious in your choosing. But I think there is absolutely no way on earth to understand what the consequences of any decision are. All you can do is go into it either with a clear mind or a clear heart. And if there's something that you passionately believe in, closing those other doors is probably a good thing. And don't be afraid of the unintended consequences that you don't know are out there, because they're out there.
Going back to that time when you left and you went off to do your own thing, how hard was it?
It was harder than I thought it was going to be. When we finished Dawson's Creek, there was times on that show that were so beautiful. I forged some of the best friendships of my life. There was also some incredibly dark periods. There was a time on that show where I really thought, I was like, you know what, I'm not doing this well enough anymore to do it. And my heart's not in it. I wanted to go home. I actually had that conversation with the producer. I was like, I miss my mother. I want to go home. And they weren't about to let me out for a variety of different reasons, but I had that moment of, that real weakness where I just thought, I can't go forward anymore. And I don't feel the passion for this that I should feel, because that job is a gift. And I wasn't honoring that gift. And I got through that place, which was about 2 years before the finish, and the feeling of accomplishment that I had when I finished that show, when I got to the end, and all of a sudden I went, I did that. We as a collective group, 136 of us, worked on that show together. And that's something that can't be taken from us. And it took those highs and those lows to make that experience complete. But you go through all those dark times, and you have to do it by yourself sometimes. If I hadn't had to do that, I'd probably get that job at Rogers Video, or I'd still be working at Starbucks, or I'd go and do those things, and I'd stay close to home because it's comfortable and it's easier. And I might not have pushed myself and tested myself in a really big way. It sounds like you're in a bit of a time right now where you're just sort of, it seems like things are a little shut in.
I feel old. These are my friends,
Old? Woman, I just turned 28. You are 24. You're barely in your mid-20s.
But all my friends are just turning 21. And so when I was just turning 21, I was a freshman in college.
Well, what was 18 to 21 for you?
18 to 21, I worked 3 jobs, trying to get myself in school,
right,
trying to pay the rent, trying to keep my head above water. basically 3 jobs at the same time. That sucked.
I'm sure that sucked, and it was really hard, and I have no desire to go back there, right?
I know.
And you already know at 24 what most kids won't learn for the next 10 years of their life is that you can survive. I think the experience that you got from 18 to 21 is invaluable, because the reality is that working for GM doesn't exist for our generation. You don't get a job, have it for 25 years, and then at the end get your gold watch and retire to your picket fence or your RV or whatever.
I can't imagine being in the place that you are now. I can't imagine it. Like, I can't fathom it. Like, you know, just knowing things and being cool with where you are.
Well, I thank you. That's flattering, but I don't.
I'm not to put my nose anywhere. Like, seriously.
But I don't know how much it is that I know, because we could sit down and do this again at 31, and I'll probably tell you, hopefully similar stuff, but a different version of this. You know, the things I think I know now, I probably won't know at 30, because I'll look back. I look back at my 18-year-old self, and most of the things that I knew, absolutely passionately knew, could not be argued against, I laugh at now. When I came out of Dawson's Creek, there were some things I knew, you know, that no one could take from me. And I look back 3 years later, and I know that's just nonsense. There's so many different ways to go at life. The paths that we're told, that we get through the television, that we get, they're just a tiny little sliver. And frankly, you and I may bump into each other again in 20 years. I'm not the most judgmental person, but maybe I'll go, oh, well, it's too bad. I thought you were going to go and do X because that's what you should have done. But if you have a smile on your face, what does it matter what I think? So feeling old at 24, the whole world is in front of you. You guys are all coming to this place because you're all graduating. So I'm sure there's that sort of pit in your stomach of what happens the day after. From my perspective, looking at the place that you are, I'm actually slightly envious, because you're about to come into this really dynamic place in your life where everything that you've known is taken away from you, and you get to take that first step, which is totally terrifying, but ultimately I think it's the best place you can possibly be in.
Thank you so much once again.
It's really a pleasure. I enjoyed that.
Appreciating everything, man, for real.
Well, I'm envious. I think you guys are going to have an unbelievable trip. It's going to be incredible.